right, welcome back to another edition of the Dirty Verdict podcast, powered by War Strategy Group and Chaos Theory.
There you go.
Digital.
There you go.
And I'm one of your hosts, Peter Taaffe, a mediator at Como Mediation.
Kyle Herbert, full-time litigator, Herbert Law Firm. Just damn glad to be here.
Bill Ogden, full-time litigator, Castle Lynch Fair and Ball, partner.
Partner, all right.
Have you always been a partner there?
Since 2020.
Tell us who our special guest is, Bill.
You want me to do it?
That's Pete's job. I'm terrible at doing the intro.
Sorry, it's on your
Yeah, thanks a lot. We're joined today by Sean Teare. Sean, thank you for joining us.
Hey man, I'm excited. I've watched this a couple of times. I'm pumped to be here.
Awesome. We're glad to have you. Sean is an excellent lawyer, prosecutor, defense lawyer on the criminal side, but recently he's kind of known in the circles because he's running for district attorney here in Harris County. Correct? I got that right.
You nailed that one. I'm
Okay.
impressed.
And so you are running against the incumbent Kim Ogg.
Yep.
And you're running. She's always been a Democrat. You're running against her in the Democratic primary.
I've also always been.
Oh yeah, of course. I just wanted you. That's where you. If you're going to run against her, you got to start in the Democratic primary because she's already been there. And so that is a very highly watched race here in Houston. I don't think there's any other. I mean, obviously everyone's looking at the national stuff, but at Harris County, I don't think there's a higher profile race than yours.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. We're the highest local race, and certainly one of the highest state races as well.
Well, I think I like jumping right into the action.
Let's go.
So I was gonna start off with what differentiates you from Kim Ogg, your Democratic primary
I
opponent?
had a different question.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Why do you want to be DA?
Yeah,
That seems like a job I would want.
Kyle. We know why Kyle wants it.
That is the thing I've wanted to do for a long time. I love that office. I had no designs on being a criminal lawyer at all when I went into law school. I was going to get rich, be like you guys, sell work, just going to be great.
Pete's rich. Kyle and I are bottom feeders.
I'm a mediator.
Now. Yeah, he's a mediator now.
We shop at Sears.
That's where rich lawyers go to die, right?
Yeah. Kyle and I actually met at a Marshall's.
Yeah.
So
Home Goods.
I wound up doing an internship there my second year of law school, just as kind of I had two buddies that I'd gone to high school with that were young prosecutors, and they wouldn't shut up about it, right? So I was like, all right, fine, I'll do.
Where'd you go to high school?
Semester, St. Thomas. Here.
Dude, it's like I can hit it with
Drink, by the way, but
I can hit it with a rock throwing it from my house.
St. Thomas.
Yeah, I live right behind us.
Such a great part of town.
Ish. All of my stock and creepers.
When I got there, it was love at first sight. It felt like everything I thought being a lawyer was supposed to be. Just the team feeling that you had. I played sports my whole life, and when you get into college and law school, you kind of lose that. And I got in that office and I fell in love with it. And I left once, but I don't ever want to leave again. So,
Were you at that time? Were y'all trying cases at that old criminal building?
no, I'm not that old.
All right, because
We'd moved into the CJC. I started there as an intern in 2005.
okay, yeah, because when I was in law school, I interned with Judge Bill Harmon at that old courthouse, and that was like a movie.
Yeah, Pete started practicing when Reagan was president.
Yeah, and Billy Harmon, an incredible short game. Great short game in golf, but as Billy knows, he's just not that good with any other stick.
He can't get off the tee.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I don't know Billy at all. When you say great short game, that means they can't drive it where the shit.
So just see, the old courthouse is still there, right?
Yeah,
it is.
It's used for some administrative
Yeah,
purpose?
so one of the old courthouses is now kind of the Family Law Center, and then they tore down the one that you're thinking of
Okay, yeah.
to put the Juvenile Justice Center.
Got it. Okay. So 2005, first, to back up, you went to University of Houston undergrad and law school.
I did.
And then right after that, you went into the DA's office?
Yeah, I was what we called a pre-commit. There were one of, I can't remember what the number was. I think 18 of us. You apply, back then it was very competitive. So
I think it's always been competitive. I didn't get an offer.
and now anybody in law school, they're hiring.
Oh, really? Are they hurting? They're ready?
I think we've got. I don't know what the unfilled positions are, but
I know a young, very talented lawyer that's looking to retire soon. So
January 1st, 2025. Tell them to come on.
he's got 2 thumbs, and it's this guy.
So I got a pre-commit spot, which means you're hired and you work on your 3rd-year bar card and you work while you're waiting for bar results.
It's not stressful.
It was amazing because you just jump right in. You're trying cases. You are a prosecutor for all intents and purposes. You just hadn't passed the bar. And on the day that the bar results were released, back then they used to dedicate an investigator to every one of the pre-commits.
No.
They carried around a box. And if you failed the bar, they watched you pack your stuff and escorted you out of the building. It was the most nerve-wracking day. I've had 4 kids. I've watched my wife have 4 kids. None of those days were as nerve-wracking as that day.
No, I can't wait. We have a pre-commit. We have an offer to a law student now. Her name is Sam, and I'm going to get a box.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Just hazing.
the mind like that.
Innocent hazing, not the bad kind of hazing.
Okay, so Sam, we need to.
Sam Sweeten.
Sam.
Watch for my banker's box.
All right. So, were there any of your colleagues boxed?
No was boxed that time. We lost the class before me, which is the reason we all knew it was a real thing. And then we didn't lose anybody again for a number of years. That's not the case with the way they're hiring pre-commits now. Last year, their pre-commit class, 5 or 10 of them failed the bar.
Well, we'll get into kind of your thoughts on why this may be. We get deeper into it. So you joined the DA's office, and we've heard, we're all civil guys, but we knew just from just having friends how competitive it apparently used to be to get that pre-commit.
Yep.
And so you obviously did well in law school and all the extracurricular stuff.
I did better in mock trial than I did in law school, but yeah.
Preaching to the choir.
Did you go
National champion?
Did you go straight U of H undergrad straight to law school?
I did. U of H undergrad, UH Law, DA's office.
And then how long were you there?
So I was there until the end of 2010, and I left to go join Denman Hurd and Bill Robbins and Ian Cloud and John Black at that time, Hurd, Robbins, Cloud, and Black, to really do mass tort pharmaceutical stuff.
Okay. Civil work.
Civil work. And,
What motivated that move?
I'd had one kid, I was about to have another one, and my wife was not really excited about living on a government salary.
And those are some cool, fun guys.
Long story short, it's super fun, shitload of money.
Yeah.
It was great. I did it. I enjoyed it. I was there until 16, and I got to do some incredible things. You can't, as some of you know, being a mass tort lawyer in Texas is tough.
Well, they're not really lawyers; they're just bankers.
Right.
They're brokering deals.
That's new now. Not then. That wasn't.
Oh, this is before my time. 05. What was it? 2010.
2010.
I was taking the L side.
Yeah. So we were one of those firms that was tip of the spear. So we were out there trying bellwether cases. We tried the only Depew ASR state case in Chicago. We tried risk-withdrawal cases in California. Some mesh cases in federal court.
So you laid the groundwork for a lot of big verdicts.
It was
because there's the Depew, Lanier's Depew in Dallas, and then the rest, Arnold Aiken, Resperdal in Philadelphia. So yeah.
And the way that A&I kind of did the Resperdal in Philly, the plan that we all had was to open different fronts. And so we utilized, keeping cases in California.
State court.
In McKesson.
Do you have like a what do they call it, JCCP?
We did. We have JCCP out there, which we all communicated with the MDLs and everything, but we tried to be more on the state side of the different fronts when we were doing that. while in cooperation with the MDLs.
When we throw out terms like JCCP, we have a number of listeners, at least one, and it's my mother, and her favorite host is Peter. I just found that out earlier today. I'm upset about it. But what is, like a JCCP? Can you kind of tell us what exactly that is?
It's just a joint control. So it's where they can consolidate all of the cases into one judge. Hopefully one judge. I've seen a few where they bring it just into one jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But typically it's in one judge, which is the same as the MDL, the multi-district litigations in federal court, especially when you're dealing with a lot of singular cases. So these aren't class actions where it's one case with a lot of plaintiffs. It's one type of case where everyone has their own individual case.
And yeah, different damages across the board.
All the damage models are different, but the subject matter of the injury, of the causation, of the defendant are the same. And so you don't want to have 1,000 different judges around the country having to learn that and get familiar with the verbiage and everything else.
Yeah, it's consistency.
Absolutely. It makes it go easier.
I love JCCPs. Mainly, they have a couple in automotive products world from California that have really paid off for us.
Well, Bill, I have to take my hat off to you that you reset it for the folks at home and help.
It was for Yvette Ogden and Peter. She fucking loves you, and I'm upset about it.
Well, that's great. Well,
More than me.
Miss Ogden,
I'm her son.
you've done very well. Done very well raising young Bill here.
Jury's out on that one.
Okay, well, I'm going to vote for that. Okay, Sean, so you're there in the civil world, high-flying, mass torts, going all over the country, trying cases. But at some point, you
Get that itch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I truly enjoyed my time, but as we said earlier, it's really tough to try any of those cases in Texas. And so, I was part of a firm that I'll be forever thankful for, but we were tip of the spear. We were taking the expert depositions. We were handling the bellwether cases. So, that Depew case that I tried in Chicago, I was there nonstop for 4.5 months. And those are the things you have to do to get the right verdicts for your clients and for everybody else's clients. And by this point, I'd had 3 kids, and, the oldest ones were starting to do not Little League, but, the kind of parish sports and things like that. And I was seeing the things I was missing, and projecting the things I was going to continue to miss. And it just, quite frankly, it wasn't worth it for me to raise my kids over FaceTime. And so I started to look for an avenue to come home and be here and be more present. And that's where Kim Ogg came in. She and I met a few times. She talked to me about her vision of the way the DA's office could be reimagined, and that we could still do public safety. We could still go after the real bad guys, but be smart and not create the next generation of them through diversions, through the smart stuff on the younger side and on the small side. And I got to tell you, I was sold. I was excited. I was as pumped as I've ever been. I felt like the first day I went as an intern to the office. I fell back in love. And so I agreed to come back with her as a division chief in one of her leadership roles.
Which division?
I started out as our vehicular crimes division chief. So I was in charge of 5 prosecutors. We made the scene of every fatal crash in Harris County for January 1st, 2017 to the day I left. I actually made a scene that day.
Really? Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
From the civil side.
And by made a scene, you went to a crime scene.
We went to a fatality scene.
Nobody likes
somewhere on the road. And then we'd prosecute those. We were a vertical prosecution unit. So we took them from the crash scene. We'd accept the charge, and then we'd prosecute the case all the way to the end. So I did that and remained the division chief of that all the way through until the day I left. So I was 6.5 years as the division chief there. 2 years into our time in 2018, I also became a division chief in our felony trial bureau. So I was in charge of 7 of our felony courts. And that means supervising the 3 prosecutors that are in the court, liaising with the judges. You're responsible for making every murder recommendation, sitting with prosecutors.
How did you decide who to murder?
It was just kind of a coin flip.
Makes sense.
Nah, it was after the murderers happened.
See, we do civil law.
Yeah, no, I get you. I'll be here all day.
So is this so? Miss Ogg won the race in 2016, or she won the?
She won in 2016. We were both sworn in at 12:01 January 1st, 2017.
I have a question. So division chiefs have to get sworn in as well?
Every DA gets sworn in with the new administration every time.
Every single district, everybody working in the DA's office, prosecutor-wise.
Everybody, anybody that
Really?
so anyone that's a sworn, so the investigators, prosecutors,
Investigators too.
so you get sworn in.
Give me a little perspective here. How many prosecutors in total work at the DA's office?
300, I believe we have funded positions. I think we have 370, 380, somewhere in that realm.
Is that enough?
No,
But how many? Do we have any? Do you have any idea? Just question. This is curiosity. How many you would want?
well, look, anybody that's spent 10 minutes in law enforcement knows that you're always going to operate from an underfunded position. That's just something that is a truism, and it's fine. You've got to learn how to work with what you got. That being said, everyone recognizes that there is a need for more prosecutors in Harris County. What you've seen is Commissioner's Court has raised the funding every year. They haven't raised the funding as much as the elected has asked for, but their position, and I think to an extent is right, is you got to show us that you can keep the people we've let you hire now. I mean,
Sure.
she's run in and demanded that they're being defunded and that they need 100 new prosecutors. And the day she did that, we were running at 70 funded unfilled positions in the office that day. So I can't give you an answer to tell you how many DAs we actually need until I get in there, fix retention, fix recruiting, get our office full, and then I'll figure it out. But we haven't run full since the day she took off.
So with what you do now, you obviously you're on the defense side, but you work hand in hand with prosecutors every single day.
Absolutely.
Do you have any idea, generally speaking, what the problem is with retention?
Oh, yeah, because I was there during most of it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, what is it, or in your opinion?
We have, quite frankly, one of the worst leaders, if not the worst leader that's ever had that position right now. She locks herself on her floor. She never is amongst the troops. We've got felony twos, the people we asked to try murders, the effectively senior associates on their way to partner who've never met her in person.
Really?
One example, just as from a pure leadership example, I mean, you've all been in law firms. We have a number of floors at the Criminal Justice Center that are the DA's specific, right? The leadership, the DA, the first assistant, the chief of staff, a few bureau chiefs are on the 6th floor. Historically, and I've worked under 5 different DAs, historically, that is an open part of the office. You walk in, you could walk into the DA's office if that were something you wanted to do. Very few people wanted to do that, especially under Chuck Rose and Paul and a few of them, but you could do it.
Yeah. And Mike Anderson was terrifying.
Yes.
I worked for him as a clerk in law school. He was awesome.
I tried a case in front of him when he was on the bench. A scary man, but an amazing person. Historically and forever, those were open doors. She locked them. You had to badge in.
Key core. Yeah.
And even division chiefs. I am the 3rd level down from the elected DA. Didn't have access, had to be escorted onto her floor. Like, those are the kind of things that don't seem that big, but you can't follow and do that job if you don't have any reason to follow the plan.
Right. You got to believe in what you're doing.
Did you leave the DA's office because of this problem with the leadership, or would you leave for other reasons?
I left the office specifically to run against her.
Okay.
Because of how bad her leadership is, amongst a number of other things. I mean, she is systematically dismantling that office and doing it in just a bad way.
So, okay, so as of January 2017, you guys you talked to her, hey, come, we're going to do all these great things together, and you're excited about it. So this story is beyond just politics or on its face. I mean, what happened between 2017 and 2024 now?
You know,
COVID, Pete. COVID is the answer to that. Hurricane Harvey as well.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift, Jason Kelsey.
Yeah, Travis Kelsey.
America.
Not Jason Kelsey.
The BP.
Probably, I mean, Taylor probably wouldn't be with Jason. I mean, I love Jason.
I think Taylor might fit better with Jason than Travis.
You think maybe she's
Hot take.
brother?
We're kind of ruining our surprise when Kyle takes his shirt off and chugs a beer.
Yeah. So what he's trying to say is Taylor Swift is a homewrecker. Is what Kyle's trying to say.
We didn't have him sign a waiver though, so I gotta leave my clothes on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank God.
If we're gonna do that, just make sure I'm gone by the time.
Off air. Okay, so yeah, what happened between?
How'd the worm turn? What happened?
No.
You know, there were a number of things, but it progressively got less about the job and the office and more about
Re-election.
loyalty to her.
Oh.
And when she was feeling disrespected by people, everything changed.
Is that how you get an Arkema?
It's how you get an Arkema. It's how
That might be. I don't know. Okay, we're not gonna go there. She's coming on. She's coming on soon. That's a tough area.
it's how you get a number of the cases that are similar to that. You know, I think personally, a lot of it can be directed back to her 2019 demand for 100 new prosecutors, where Commissioner's Court asked her specifically for what she was going to do with them. And quite frankly, she didn't have an answer. And when you look at that, she was so confident going into that, and I know that because I was part of the meetings. She was so confident going in because Judge Hidalgo had just been elected, and she was confident that she could get what she wanted from Judge Hidalgo and Commissioner Ellis and Commissioner Garcia because Democrats now controlled the Commissioner's Court. When they told her no, it was a sea change inside the office. I personally, I think she felt disrespected. I think she felt like the party had disrespected her. And if you look at her decisions and the things she has done since that point, it all points to her turning away from the Democratic Party and the way that she went about the promises she went about trying to fulfill when she got elected, and everything from there, from the O'Donnell decree, where we had helped crack
What is the O'Donnell?
Yeah, well, I don't know what that is.
to misdemeanor bail reform. So there were a set of plaintiffs that filed suit in federal court about misdemeanor bail.
I don't disagree with the misdemeanor bail issue.
I don't think any rational person does.
I know one. Well, I don't know.
I said rational. But
I'm not going to take sides here. We're objective here at the Dirty Verdict.
the misdemeanor bail lawsuit was terminated when the new misdemeanor judges came in 2018, and they came up with a settlement, and it was called the O'Donnell decree. And there were specific carve-outs for, people who weren't going to be immediately released on PR bonds, and they were for the misdemeanors that all of us think are probably dangerous, DWIs, assault family members. But for the vast majority of cases, they were going to be released regardless of what they had in their bank account for misdemeanors, which, again, I think is the right thing to do.
Because bail is just an assurance that you're going to show up for trial.
That is all.
Because you're not guilty at that moment.
You are, by, the United States Constitution, presumed innocent.
It gets complicated when you get into felonies, but for misdemeanor purposes, that's yes.
And that's all we're talking about. That's all we were talking about in 2019. But we went from crafting what I think is a very workable, good plan in the O'Donnell decree.
The O'Donnell decree sounds like bail reform.
It was bail reform.
Okay.
It was absolutely bail reform, misdemeanor bail reform, the only bail reform that's happened in Harris County. Mm-hmm. We went from being a proponent and helping work through it to when Judge Hidalgo and the rest of Commissioner's Court denied her 100 prosecutors. Standing up, the elected DA stood up and openly opposed that decree in its final settlement meeting at federal court in front of Judge Rosenthal. And everything since then, you've seen the pivot. And quite frankly, I think it's reverting back to her 1990 ways of running twice as a Republican.
So you're saying
Wait. Let me back up here.
So you're saying you think she didn't get the support she needed from other Democrats that were holding office, and ever since then it's been kind of a siege mentality for her of, she doesn't trust the people that are around her, and so she's kind of barricaded herself in.
I think she didn't get the request she wanted. There's no way that we needed 100 prosecutors immediately. We couldn't have filled it. It was simply a power grab. We needed more, but to demand 100 prosecutors straight out when we were struggling to fill the positions we had already, we should have asked for incremental growth, which is the way you always ask in government. But that wasn't the way. She just wanted to test how much power she had. And when she failed, she went into a siege mentality, and it has not stopped.
When did you?
I'd like to back up a little bit. You mentioned that Ms. Ogg may or may not have ran as a Republican. I did not know that.
Yes, she ran for district court judge as a Republican in the 90s.
Oh, well, I'll be damned.
When did you leave the office?
I left February of, this is my 1-year anniversary, 23.
Okay. And then did you have some time in the county attorney's office ever, or was you just district the whole time?
The only civil work I'm going to do is when I get paid.
Okay. I thought, didn't the county attorney doesn't have any criminal jurisdiction?
None. Not here. There are certain jurisdictions in Texas, like in Travis County, the county attorney handles misdemeanors.
Got it.
The district attorney handles felonies. In Harris, the district attorney handles criminal, juvenile, and some others, and the county attorney handles all the civil stuff. Our county attorney right now, Christian Menefee, is one of the greatest ones that I think exists in the state, if not the country. He's an amazing guy.
Good.
So other than the issues with staffing and staffing up competently and staffing up people that are going to stick around and stay in those positions, what other stuff do you want to see change at the DA's office if you had the opportunity to work to be the DA?
So we've got to fix our intake division. We've got to fix the way that we accept charges. A quick history lesson. 1972, Carol Vance, an amazing man, was DA. And he started to see that we were having a lot of bad arrests. And people back then, and to this day, in most jurisdictions in this country, the police make an arrest, submit the paperwork to the DA's office, and within 30 or 90 days, the DA's office makes a charging decision. That doesn't stop someone from going to jail and sitting in jail or getting out on bond. So in 1972, Carol Vance said, we're going to put an extra gatekeeping process here. So he instituted intake. It was the first of the kind in the country. Prosecutors, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, from that point until today, have answered the phone every time a police officer wants to arrest anyone in Harris County. They have to walk the facts through that prosecutor, and the prosecutor says, yes, you have probable cause, or no. The way it was staffed from 1972 to 2017 was by rank and file prosecutors that were in the courts. And then as a way to earn extra money, because it's the only way that prosecutors can even get close to all their friends from law school that are doing much better than them, they would work these extra shifts. It was always staffed. Morale was better because people were getting paid more and they could stay. And
Because nobody wants to work at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday to listen to cops say, hey, I picked up this drug.
Unless
you arrest him.
Unless you're getting paid.
unless you get paid.
Yeah, she getting paid.
It's really tough to have that be your full-time job. So in 2017, she took those line prosecutors out of the equation. She staffed it with, as she calls it, professionalized intake. Now, human nature being what it is, imagine what caliber of person you have who voluntarily signs up for 5 nights a week, midnight to 8 a.m. in a call center, answering phones from cops on the side of the road talking about arrests. Imagine the caliber of person that went to law school, passed the bar, and is willing to accept that job.
We got a name for people like that on the podcast. We call them Peter Taaffes.
So I'm headed later tonight. So you say, what
Gaz gold.
to play the devil's advocate? What would be the rationale? What would be her reason for doing that.
So the thought process, she had one of them then, which is different than the rationale she gives in that, despite the fact that she refuses to change back. And we've seen the Houston Chronicle did a pretty significant story this week about how bad it has gotten there. But her rationale then was that we were paying too much to these prosecutors working overtime. They were getting time and a half of whatever their hourly rate was. And so what she didn't figure out is you had to pay people more to come work midnight to 8, and they were additional people who got benefits and other things as well. So it wound up, when you look at the actual cost, it's now costing us more than it did then. But even when it started, it was a wash. So now she's had to pivot her reason for doing it, because she can never admit that she made a mistake. So now her reason is that she wanted a consistent voice to police, right? And so whereas before we had 350, depending on which prosecutor was there answering the phones.
But these are the prosecutors that are eventually going to try these cases, right? Isn't that the consistency?
That's where the consistency always existed. But in this case, you now have somewhere on the order of 50 consistent voices. The problem is, none of those voices have ever tried one of those cases. None of those voices know what they're talking about. So yes, you have 50 consistent voices, but they're wrong. And so we have thousands and thousands of cases that get found with no probable cause. But those are the ones that thankfully we get done in a day or two. The really bad ones are the ones that they accept and then pinned for 3 years or 5 years and wind up finally getting dismissed or found not guilty at trial, which is what we're seeing happen over and over.
Why does it take that long, 3 to 5 years?
There are a number of reasons, and we have to give, I think, to be fair, all of them. Obviously, Hurricane Harvey displaced us. That was difficult.
Displaced us too, because y'all took our place.
Well, exactly. And
by that, for the listeners that don't know, the criminal side is, when you're fighting for people's freedom, it takes precedent over people's money. So when the criminal courthouse flooded, they took over the civil courthouse.
Good job, Bill. Good job.
I thought I put that together well.
Clarification, Bill, that really was spot on.
That was purely for my mother that's listening.
And so we were displaced. We were in 11 different buildings. Divisions were in different places. And so that obviously backlogged us. We were handling cases in the jail. Like, we had a judge come down, prosecutor, defense lawyer in the jail. It was a wild time. Cases backlogged. We dug through that, not as quickly as we should, and I'll get to why. But, as we were climbing out of that, COVID hit. And that put the brakes on a lot of stuff, and it affected a ton.
But have you guys considered just asking people, like, don't commit crime for the next month, we got to catch up?
I floated that, and it didn't
Fell flat.
It didn't take. I still think it might work, but so those are the obvious reasons. But most of the country has gone through, obviously, COVID. All the country did, and everyone else deals with other things. What's different about the last 7.5 years in Harris County is, I keep going back to it, the leadership. The fact that right now, every prosecutor there, and Bill, you have friends that have worked there and are now defense lawyers.
Yeah, hey, shout out to Trio Rosane. I've known him since he was 18 years old. I've known him when he moved from Alaska to Texas.
That man wrestled a bear one time.
I am aware. He told us everything. He was in my fraternity. He's a great guy. He's a prosecutor.
Is he the one that Maverick said was the...
Yes.
Okay.
He's a young prosecutor, not a small prosecutor, but a young prosecutor.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
So you can ask anyone, but because everyone is always walking on eggshells, because no one knows what the next target of their boss is going to be, everyone is paralyzed. So cases don't get dismissed that should get dismissed. Plea bargain offers don't get made that should get made. Cases don't get done and disposed of in the way they should, because the easiest and best way to not get on the radar of the upper management at the DA's office right now is to put a high recommendation on the case and then just let it pend, because the turnover is so high that you're not going to be there by the time the case is over anyway. And so you see cases continue to go over and over, years and years and years. And when you couple that with intake being as broken as it is, and just the floodgates of arrests, and the fact that we can't get any cases disposed because of the paralysis that's happening inside the office from upper management, you have the perfect storm of what we're seeing right now.
When you say high recommendation, what does that mean?
So let's take a burglary habitation. It's a second-degree felony, 2 to 20.
Someone goes in my house and takes my PlayStation.
While you're not there.
While you're not there.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, technically you can have burglary habitation if someone is there, but that usually turns into an aggravated robbery.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, you get robbery real quick.
A burglary of a habitation. All right. And anyone that says that's not a violent crime hasn't sat and talked to the victims, because when they come home, they feel as violated as any person that I've ever sat with and talked
I'm probably more scared if you're not there.
to. It is a terrifying, harrowing experience for the victims. So it's a significant case. It is a serious case. But the punishment range is anywhere from 2 to 20. And not all burglary habitations are made the same, right? Not all defendants are made the same. You have your serial burglary habitation people. You have your serial people that break into others' homes for different reasons.
Yeah, you have non-violent, you have violent, you have people armed, not armed.
You have different motivations.
Sure.
You have addiction.
And records.
Other people. So again, not all of them are made the same. But one thing is usually the same. You have a victim, right, who is terrified, feels violated. So you have to decide and balance what is just, because that's your oath, to see that justice is done in every case. And that is you're never going to make the victim feel whole again. You're never going to get the best outcome for the defendant. You're never going to get the best outcome for everyone. The job is to see that justice is done, right? And so sometimes with a youthful offender who has an issue, maybe it is a diversion. Sometimes maybe it's a deferred adjudication or a probation. Let's give them a chance with one of the labor organizations to learn a trade, do something else. Those options can sometimes scare and anger complainants, victims. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't the just thing to do for everyone involved. But if you have a scared or angry complainant or an angry police officer, you've gone out on a limb to give someone a second chance. And this can get you in trouble with the current administration, because their only goal is to not get on the news for doing something that's going to shed a bad light in what they envision the media is going to look like. And so the way to not get in trouble, no one cares what the defendant screams about or the defense attorney. So you wreck every burglary habitation at 15 years in prison.
Jeez. Okay.
That's not the case. I'm just using that as
As an example.
a high
I was
recommendation.
about to say.
You put a high number in prison years that no one can fault you for. And then you never have to worry about it.
Then you're tough on crime.
You're tough on crime. You know the defense attorney's not going to take it, and you're never going to have to try that case, because you're going to get moved to another court. You're going to get promoted because there's no one to take the place of the person that just quit above you. And so you're not going to have to deal with that case. And so instead of following your oath and seeing that justice is done to finish that case, there's no reason for them to do that now. That, despite what in 2 weeks my opponent will come on here and say, that is why you have a backlog the way we have it.
And so it disincentivized problem solving and thinking for yourself and trying to do the right thing. The culture over there right now is what you're saying.
I'm a politician. He's a mediator. In the exact same ways, we said the same thing.
He's also trying to keep his kids out of the system.
Yeah. He's pandering to you in case he needs a favor.
Yeah.
Understood.
Well, so two things. And again, I'm trying to think through. Some of them say, y'all have a personality conflict or some baggage in the past, that's fine. But here, I live here, and I don't care about personality conflict. I care about like safety.
Right.
But there's kind of a couple camps, because one, there's a camp that I don't want to have my habitation burglarized
Neither.
or robbed or killed or anything like that. There's another group that says our neighborhood is targeted by police, and our kids are picked up unfairly.
Jesus,
There's
Pete.
that's your godson.
Oh,
Your unofficial godson.
Big Mike.
Call it, yeah.
Big Mike.
But our community is unfairly targeted. Our children are picked up at a higher rate in other parts of the city, and then apparently their cases are pending for several years, and they can't get out of it, and they can't get jobs, or they're hampered in other ways. So as far as how it affects people that live in this county, what are some ways that you would fix that and make it better?
Well, here's the thing, right? Of course, no one wants their homes to get broken into. No one wants to come home from the Galleria and have somebody follow them home and carjack them. Nobody wants to eat at La Griglia and have somebody stick a gun in their face for a watch. Of course. But do you feel safer in 2024 than you did in 2016?
Not at all.
The answer is 100% no. And it is because the way that my opponent has run that office has run off every talented, experienced prosecutor from that place. And they didn't come to you guys' side to get rich. They didn't come to the defense side to get rich. The vast majority of them went to Brian Middleton in Fort Bend. They went to Galveston County with Jack Rody. They went up to Brett Ligon in Montgomery County. They still believe in the mission. They still want to do this job. They just don't want to do it for her.
A quick question on that point. One, you mentioned plaintiff's attorneys and wealth, and as you can see from Kyle's hair, extremely wealthy. Second of all, when you started with the DA's office, was the turnover rate what it is now? Has it always been that way? Because I know there's always some turnover.
It absolutely was not. And I'll give you one quick example, and then I want to come back to finish why it's important.
Yeah.
So when I was coming up through the office, right, it was very similar to a partner track in a big firm.
Sure.
Right? And we always considered making district court chief, the person that can handle capital murders, as you have made partner in one of the biggest law firms in Texas, right?
The biggest, maybe.
Well, even in the public. And so it took 7 if you were a superstar, 9 years if you were a regular, to get to be a district court chief in Harris County, okay? And that's because of attrition.
Sure.
People left. Of course people left. But, you know, you always had your group of people that left after 3 years, and then you had your group that maybe weren't lifers, but were there 10 to 15, and then you had your lifers. We don't have that middle group anymore. We are making district court chiefs at the Harris County DA's office right now with people that have been lawyers less than 4 years.
They can't even run for judge.
Think about that. We are entrusting capital murders to people that have been licensed less than 4 years. And if you want to say or ask why we're losing 40% of every felony that we take, 40% of the felonies that we're trying, we're losing.
Not guilties?
Not guilty.
40%?
40%. Wow. We lost 4 murder cases in 1 week 3 months ago. We are losing more misdemeanors than we're winning at trial. And every one of those is because she cannot keep and retain and train talent.
That's a metric that regular people, I think, can understand. So
It should be terrifying to read.
it has that. I mean, where was it 20 years ago as far as convictions?
We were winning at minimum 90% of the felonies we were trying. At a minimum. And we were winning 95% of the murders. And I've heard my opponent use this line specifically when we talk about this. And it's, we just try the case. We can't decide what happens. That is patently false. When you have people that don't have the experience and how to try the case, they lose cases that they should win. People that were guilty of that offense walk free. But even more so, you don't have the experience to evaluate which cases should go to trial and which cases shouldn't. And that's where we are right now. We are taking bad cases to trial because we filed bad cases at intake. We are taking cases that could be winners to trial without the preparation or the trial ability because we've never tried them before. We are doing all of it. It is the perfect storm. So you can't give lip service to being all about handling violent crimes and not have anyone at the office that can handle violent crimes. That's the problem. And when I come into office, I've already apologized to Brian Middleton. I'm bringing all of the refugees back home. We're going to have experience from the beginning back in the office. But more importantly, we're going to have a real setup for recruiting. We don't even do on-campus interviews anymore. We
Really?
CI
Yeah, it was a big deal.
every law school in Texas. We're going back to that, but we've got to go bigger than that.
I was going to say, you can go national.
We've got to go bigger. We are the third largest county in the country, right? We will
Who's bigger than us?
Cook County and LA County. Yeah.
Oh,
Chicago
makes sense. Yeah,
and LA.
I do work in Cook, and yeah, they're big.
And so we will surpass Cook by 2030. But we are going to go national, and we're going to treat it like college football recruiting. We're going to go to every national mock trial tournament. We're going to go to every moot court tournament.
About time.
When, and those recruiters, those people, those senior prosecutors from our office, when you have somebody that wins best speaker at Buffalo Niagara, they're getting a conditional offer. You want to come try more cases in the next 3 years and you'll try anywhere else and get the best groundwork ever? Come to Harris County. If I get 15% of all the offers I have in 1 year to come by and we restore the integrity and the fun of that office, they'll tell their law school classmates that are a year behind them.
So this is
We'll tell the bills.
This is kind of you caught me off guard with that, because as a person that was very successful in mock trial in law school and then coached for 7.5 years and then taught for 2, the greatest speakers that we had, none of us got, other than Court Akers, and that's only because he's pretty. None of us got jobs at the DA's office, and every one of us applied, and we were heartbroken when we didn't get it. And some of our classmates got it.
Yeah.
They didn't do any mock trial. They had no idea what they were doing, and so it was upsetting to see. And I've never heard anyone put it like that before, and I think that's a great idea.
So you'd say, big picture, culture at the top,
Yep.
leadership at the top
Yep.
means lower. Nothing against these people that are working there, but it's just not the same caliber that's been in the past, and that bleeds down. Really, leadership.
Yeah, you might have that talent. They just haven't been reared into that performance level.
And that's the thing. The rank and file that are there right now, I've supervised. I love them. They want to be there. They want to work hard. They just have no training program. They are thrust into jobs that they don't have the experience to do yet. I mean, I don't want to sound like this, but I was and am a hell of a trial lawyer. And I tried more cases in misdemeanor than any of my contemporaries. And I jumped faster than any of them. And I was the first one from my class to be promoted to felony. But I didn't get promoted to felony until I had been at the DA's office 18 months. I tried 60 misdemeanors before I handled...
In 18 months?
Yeah. But before I handled a felony.
Jesus.
Have people trying... This was back in the day with no test, no accident detail.
I was going to say, you were trying 3 a week.
You were here.
Yeah, okay.
One of those.
I was doing math in my head.
But you knew what you were doing. You could find your voice as a trial lawyer down with relatively low stakes. We've got people that we hand murder cases to that have never heard a one-word verdict. We've got people we hand murder cases to in sex assault cases right now who have tried 3 cases total, sometimes never with 12 people in the jury box. You cannot say that you are about protecting the community and prosecuting violent crime when you can't keep and retain talent to prosecute.
You talked about trying a ton of cases and being a great trial lawyer, and we can continue to talk about the campaign if you won, but I thought I would ask, are there any trials you handled that you're particularly proud of or got a lot of notoriety or you think are indicative of the kind of lawyer you are?
Or just stories about Dan Cogdale, because he's awesome, and I know you work with him, and I'm a big fan.
So I'm going to get to that because who doesn't like talking about themselves? I have had the last year the chance to work with Dan Cogdale, and I've always known Dan from afar, and in especially the criminal world. You talk about a legend. I mean, there aren't that many that are still alive. And Dan's got plenty more years.
He's the one that everybody gives Racehorse Haynes the credit for cattle prodding himself.
Yes.
Dan's the one that did it, right?
Dan cattle prodded himself to show that it didn't hurt.
It hurts as somebody who's been cattle prodded.
Yeah,
it sucks.
I went to college.
Yeah.
But Dan,
All right. Well, he was in a fraternity.
when you talk about like a guy with his track record, he's the only person that successfully defended anybody from Enron. He defended the Branch Davidian survivors and walked the guy.
And has a TV series on it,
TV series about him.
which is a great series.
Great series.
The man has spanned decades of just the most incredible career. And unlike some of the other ones that, want to self-aggrandize and stuff, Dan just like, what's the next case? And being able to watch how he prepares there's a reason he's this great. And it's not just because he is, an incredible speaker. The man knows everything he's going to do backwards and forwards before he walks in anywhere. I'm a better trial lawyer and a better lawyer all around today than I was 1 year ago, all because I get to watch him.
I think the reason I'm such a big fan of Dan is I follow him on social media, which is awesome. You want to talk about unfiltered, and he will tell you how it is. Follow Dan Cogdale on any platform. No question. But then he's like, oh, on my spare time, I'm going to go jump dirt bikes and ride him he is a avid dirt bike, push the limit type dude where bones get broken type thing.
I mean, the dude, last month, the month before you got a hip replacement, he's telling me, hey, I'm going to be gone this week. I'm going to go for a bike ride with Lance and Lyle. I was like, huh? And, Lance Armstrong, Lyle love it. They're just going to go ride bikes.
Yeah, what do you do on the weekends?
He leads a different life than most people. It's amazing. It's been a wild ride this last year. All right, so trials. That's another part of the leadership. Every year that I was there as a supervisor, the last 6.5, I tried a case intentionally. I tried at least one case every year because your people have to see that you know what you're doing, right? You have to see what their feedback they're getting from juries are and things like that. And so that's going to be something I continue as the DA. I'm going to try a case a year, every year. I'm going to work a docket a month, one docket, just so I get to see what cases we're filing firsthand. You can't be in an echo chamber up there and do it. I think in this second stint, the case I'm probably the most proud of is I tried a guy named Blaine Boudreaux.
This is as a prosecutor.
As a prosecutor. I tried a guy named Blaine Boudreaux for felony murder. And it was the first time anyone in the state of Texas had ever used failure to stop and render aid as the underlying felony for a felony murder.
Wait, failure to stop, that's a felony?
When it results in a death.
Oh, okay.
Hit and run.
That makes more sense.
I know. I'm going to answer this and then we take a little break. All right. So the basic facts are Boudreaux gets involved in 4 crashes in one day, all within an hour and a half.
This is like a Cajun joke waiting to happen.
But yeah, and if the
Moonshiners.
sad, so he's a pillhead. He's not on booze.
Oh.
But he is doped up out of his mind in all 4 of the crashes. The first 2 don't result in any real injuries. Both times cops get him tickets, And I mean, he can't even stand up straight. We have video, and they just didn't want to deal with it. Cut him loose. So then he drives around by U of H, and there's a man named Leonard Batiste, who Air Force veteran, 5 years in Nam, and just kind of never reintegrated into society. No criminal history, just
Standard Vietnam vet.
exactly. He's just one of those guys. He had a home, but he just walked the streets and picked up cans, and that's what he did. So Boudreaux, this is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Boudreaux on a Sunday hits Leonard and knocks him into the ditch where we don't find him for a day and dead. He takes the first right he can, blows through 3 red lights, and Gloria Medrano had just picked up her 6-year-old son Josh from a birthday party, and they were on their way home. And she is coming with the green light, and Blaine is doing about a 92 and T-bones him. And Josh is hit and catastrophically injured, and Gloria is almost losing her leg, gets out and is holding Josh. And we all got to watch Josh's last breaths as the first responder comes up, and he's gasping with the death rattle, and he dies in her arms. And so we stop Boudreaux right there, and we find Blaine was kind enough to leave his front license plate by Leonard Batiste's body, which helped us tie him together, and then with DNA.
Oh, he took off.
Yeah. Oh, he took off from Batiste. So we do all of this, and for the first 2 years, first year and a half that it's pending, we have 2 intox manslaughters. That's all we have. And the maximum on each of those 20 years. And Boudreaux had 3 DWIs that, because it had been Louisiana, bad Cajun joke.
No such thing.
So we couldn't use them.
Oh, those aren't enhancements.
Couldn't enhance him. Anything. So most I could get Boudreaux on was 20 years on both of those. And it just didn't seem like enough. And so we started digging and figuring out. And so we decided to use the felony murder statute, which is if you are in the commission of or in the immediate flight therefrom of a felony, and it has to be certain felonies, and you commit an act clearly dangerous to human life, which results in a death, you can be charged with murder just as if you pointed a gun and shot someone.
Never been done before?
No one had ever used failure to stop and render.
It's creative.
So we used Leonard's failure to stop and render aid as the felony for Joshua Medrano's death because he was fleeing. It was a 2-week trial. The punishment phase was pretty intense. And, you know, it was heavily covered by the media. And the jury came back with 80 years.
Good.
Aggravated.
Good.
So he's going to do 30 before he gets a chance at parole. And it was it was the right thing to have happen. And that one I'm probably the most proud of. One other fun part about that one is the New York Post had a headline about that with a picture of him getting taken to jail. And it made me crack up. I actually have that one framed because it says, junkie sentenced to die for deadly drug-fueled crashes. And I just love that in New York, they're reading that and going, oh yeah, Texas, they'll kill him for doing that.
Yeah, right. So real quick, because I know you have a call real quick. When you get a verdict like that and you put somebody away like that, do y'all give like high fives? Is there a celebratory like kind of atmosphere? Or is it just let's go to the next one?
Oh, no. It's hard to of course, you're celebrating that you think the right thing has happened.
Sure.
And the amount of time and blood, sweat, and tears you put into a case like that with my trial partner at that point, Lynn Wynn, who was an amazing attorney. We'd lived and breathed that case for, months. And so being able to celebrate that with Cynthia, who was ecstatic. And
as a victim, or surviving spouse or mom. Okay.
And Leonard's sister, Batiste, the vet who'd come in for the verdict. Those are great moments. And then, quietly as a team and as a group of lawyers, you go out and you have, a couple drinks and you celebrate that way.
I'm not going to limit it to a couple.
It's fine. I'm running for office.
We don't call him Kyle Bottle Service for anything. You know?
All right.
All right. And so, Sean, you've been very generous with your time. Sorry. Bill is looking at himself on the camera. He's not happy with his look.
Sorry, I apologize. Amanda Orr, our chief strategist, and the reason that we haven't been canceled yet, she was being very distracting. I apologize.
Somehow, Bill's mustache grew to Tom Selleck levels.
All right, hey, in the comments, I was trimming my beard, and I was like, you know what? I had a great settlement yesterday, and so I was very happy this morning. I was like, I'm going to leave it.
You know, in legal circles, that's called an aggressive brown face caterpillar. I don't know if you knew.
I don't think you can call that anymore. I think you say brown, Kyle.
No?
Yeah, you can't say brown. As a Native American, I'm offended.
Anyhow, so back to so Sean, you've been very generous with your time. We wanted to give you kind of a closing argument as to why the voters of Harris County should vote for you as Harris County DA in the Democratic primary in a couple weeks.
Yeah, because they're not there yet.
Yeah. First of all, this has been a blast.
Thanks for coming.
I have truly enjoyed this. As you can imagine, I've done a number of interviews and podcasts. This has been, if not my favorite, certainly one of mine.
We pride ourselves on high quality podcast.
Absolutely. The prep work you guys did was really second to none.
I'm not sure if that's sarcastic.
Kyle got himself arrested and charged just to see how it would go, and he's with you.
I did the intake, I did the walkthrough, the full body cavity search, which I had to really
He volunteered.
In short, is he has to go return to his cell later.
I'm just glad they deloused you. All right. So,
It took a team.
why should I be the next Harris County DA? I have the experience. I have the experience in this decade of trying cases, of actually being in the trenches working. I have the desire, the trust, and the work ethic of the rank and file. They want to work for me. Everyone in that courthouse wants to work for me. I know how to fix what's broken. And you can rest assured I'm not going to have a Gotham City fundraiser like your current elected had, calling her own city Gotham, that she's been in charge of for 7 years. We're going to have accountability at that office. When we make mistakes, we're going to say we made a mistake, and we're going to correct it. But it's not going to be blame shifting. We're not going to spend all of this time and capital attacking other people, regardless of the party. We're going to do the job. We're going to, quite frankly, be relatively boring at the DA's office. We're going to do the job and go home. That is what we're going to do. We're going to bring integrity and competence back to the office, and we're going to do it smart. We're going to do it differently than we did before, because locking everyone up and throwing away the key and giving every single person a criminal record has been shown not to work. The broken window theory does not work. We got to hold people accountable for what they did. We got to give them hope. We got to give them a different path out of the system so that they don't keep coming back, so that at some point their only option in their mind isn't to post up outside the Galleria and follow somebody home. But when those people do that,
They'll know.
we've got to have the talent. We've got to have the ability to hold them accountable.
Do you have a website or anything you want to plug so that people, any listeners, especially Yvette Ogden, because I told her I would shout her out tonight, would like to donate to or anything like that? Do you have a website or anything?
Yeah, I mean, donate as much, literally all your money.
As long as it's within the statutory limits.
Guess what the statutory limit is in this election?
5,000?
0. I mean, none. There's no
limits on the local races?
no limit. Give as much, again.
If only I had some money.
Yeah, my mother is now cashing out my father's 401k.
They took it all.
We can do a reverse mortgage for Yvette.
Yeah.
And
All right, well,
Yep. She's going to sell it.
so website is Sean Teare, SeanTeare 4DA, FORDA.com. And you can get everywhere from there. Social medias, Instagram, Twitter, or what do we call it, X now, Facebook, TikTok.
There we go.
And the election is early voting starts when?
March.
Early voting starts February 20th.
Yeah, and we have a February 29th this year, in case y'all weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Leap year.
As someone who has to spend every day out on the campaign trail, it would be on a leap year.
Yeah, you're right. You get an extra one.
Every day before March 5th.
And let's say, yeah, thanks to Christian Menifee for making voting much more accessible despite efforts.
I think Lena did her job as well on fighting that as well.
Look, it started with Chris Hollins, who's
True.
now your city controller, but at that time was the county clerk. Another true visionary, just a magnificent public servant and person. I think he's going to do incredible things. But what Christian and Judge Hidalgo and the rest of the Commissioners Court have done to protect the things that he implemented in, some really trying times has been nothing short of heroic all the way around. So we should all thank them that we have 24-hour voting. We have early voting the way it is. It just, they've done some really crazy things. What shocks me is one of the inalienable rights that we have is voting. And what other right do we have that we have to opt into?
Yep.
It's just mind-boggling that we have to opt in to voting.
Bill's saying free speech.
No,
He likes-
you don't got to opt into any of it.
You don't have to opt into free speech.
Bill likes to test free speech by opting into.
Oh, I'll push those limits. We're going to find out where the obscenity line is. Yeah,
The other thing is,
sorry, Mom.
so Sean, is there a Republican candidate on that side?
Who's running?
His name is Dan Simons.
Okay.
Okay, we haven't talked as much about him because, as we know, in Harris County, still kind of the Democratic Party is where the action is.
For the last 6 cycles.
Yeah, so
And we think with the presidential election here, and if Trump is the nominee on the Republican side, what that does, at least in Harris County historically over the last 3 times, is it generates a significant Democratic turnout.
Yeah, sure. It's not even close at that point. You're talking 9 point race on that.
So as we said with prior people, if you're living in Houston, you vote in Houston, you register in Houston.
Harris County.
Harris County. Probably care about your local races, the Democratic primary, regardless of maybe philosophically where you are, but if you want to have a say in how your county is run,
That's the move.
probably need to look at voting in the Democratic primary.
And the thing to know about that a lot of people don't, I'm actually surprised as I'm out here on the trail, is by voting in either primary, it doesn't preclude you from voting for whoever you want in the general.
Yeah.
Right. When you vote in a primary, all it means is you can't vote in the other primary.
Yeah.
But when you get to your ballot in November, you can pick anyone on either side all the way down the ballot you want, regardless of which primary you
That's a good point. Now, is it just you and Miss Ogg in this one?
It is mano a mano.
Okay, so there will not be a runoff.
No, it can't be.
And I
Yeah,
can tell you,
because that's the only thing is if you vote in the primary, one party or the other, you're limited in the runoffs. But then the general election in November, you're free to go wherever you want.
That's exactly.
We don't. Other states, they say, are you a registered Republican or Democrat? We don't do that in Texas.
yeah, you can elect one cycle to vote in the Democratic primary, one cycle to vote in the Republican. You don't have to be registered either way.
Excellent. All right, Sean.
Thanks, man. I learned a lot today, actually. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, this was a very good educational piece for us. Sure.
Between Epley and I hope y'all enjoyed it.
We had 2 back-to-back great guests.
All right, with that, we will close this out again. Like, subscribe, Instagram, Apple Podcasts,
Spotify, TikTok, Facebook.
Yeah, Instagram. We're going to post a lot on Instagram. Thank you, and we will see. To be fair, Sean's opponent, Kim Ogg, has been invited and accepted an invitation to come on for the primary, and we're going to post that. So we'll hear from her hopefully next time.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Sean.